Hello to all of the real progressives out there. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Start with Real Progressives plugs as usual. You guys know the drill. If you want to learn more about us or support our organization, find any of our content, articles, podcasts, etc., go to realprogressives.org. You can also find our Patreon there if you'd like to contribute to our organization. Every little bit helps, you guys. We very much appreciate the help. We're engaged in media, education, activism, organizing, all this kind of stuff. So please go to our website if you want to contribute or learn more about us. I want to talk about the drone strike in Kabul that the Pentagon has now come forward and basically admitted was a war crime and did not kill any ISIS targets. This is a crazy story for those of you who haven't been following it. The United States executed a strike against a man that they claimed was a member of ISIS. Turns out he was not at all a member of ISIS. Killing him and his children as he returned home. The drone had been following him for hours and waited until he pulled into his house, and his kids jumped into the car with him, as they apparently did whenever he got home, to fire and killed a bunch of children and civilians. This is just a horrendous story. I have a clip here. This is actually CNN that went and talked with the family members of those killed. I want to compliment them for covering it at all, but I also have a criticism of some of the way that it's framed. So we'll watch this clip and then come back and I'll explain what I mean.
Family, and you have spoken to some of them. What have you learned about them?
Yeah, this is a family, the Ahmadi family, that are really still in shock. They can't understand, with all this high-tech surveillance, how the military, how the Pentagon couldn't have known that there were civilians in the area, because it's a very densely populated neighborhood with tiny, narrow back alleys, and their children were out at the front when the father was coming home at the end of his day's work. This was the moment for them to enjoy some fun time with their father, and they were helping guide his vehicle into the compound, and they would do what they always do when he came home with the water, which was pile in the vehicle with him, have some fun with him, and then help him get the water out. But of course, that was the moment when the missile struck. To go back and talk to the family now is really just to touch and feel that pain that they're going through.
Like this is the blood of children.
This is the blood of the children up here?
Yeah.
Imal Ahmadi shows me his family's shattered house. It's just heartbreaking to see this now. And to know that they say that it was just a mistake.
Yeah, that's a big mistake of you. This house is black. You know about it, yeah?
No one has had the heart to clean it up since the drone strike 3 weeks ago.
They are all of them innocent. Like my cute daughter that I can't forget her. She was so lovely for me that, I remember all of them.
The Pentagon's late admission, though, that his brother Zimari was not an ISIS terrorist, something positive.
The USA has proved that they are targeted innocent people. Because of that, I'm so happy about this.
But he still has questions. 5 children, he says, were inside the car when it was hit.
The USA know that in this area inside the car was children. Why they targeted an innocent person in this area? Why they targeted civilian person?
So far, they say they've had no.
So again, I'm glad that they covered it. It's devastating. I'm glad that they actually went and spoke to a family member of the victims. But that ending bit where they tried to frame it as though this guy was like somehow very pleased with the United States admitting what they had done here. No. What he was saying, at least in my interpretation, he was saying like they never even do that. So I'm glad to see they did. But it's still a fucking war crime. He still killed a bunch of children. Like, for CNN to try to frame that like, oh, it's a positive. That's gross. That's disgusting. That's so beyond the pale. Imagine if like Russia had done what we just did. Would CNN be saying, well, it's so great that Putin admitted what he did? Of course they wouldn't. It's so absurd, the hypocrisy, the rank hypocrisy that you see on these cable news outlets. So this drone strike, the Pentagon came out and basically admitted they knew that civilians were present, that children were present, and they went forward with it anyway. Didn't kill any ISIS members, nothing. And the worst part to me, not even the worst part, that's an additionally egregious part, is that it's pretty clear that Biden did this out of political need, out of he wanted to not look weak after the withdrawal went poorly, right? Obviously, I support pulling out of Afghanistan, you guys. I've covered this at length. There's some nuance here. But when the attack at Kabul airport happened, it made Biden look pretty fucking bad. When the Taliban so quickly swept through Afghanistan and took it over, it made the Biden administration and U.S. intelligence look pretty fucking bad. So it seems clear to me that the reason for this drone strike was, no, see, I'm not weak. You're not going to call me weak. I think it was, he politicized the whole thing, and he went and killed a bunch of children and civilians over his political need to not look weak. How pathetic is that? In a way, like just on surface level psychology, how weak is that? To sit there and be so terrified of a bad news cycle that you will kill children? How pathetically weak is that? Yet, of course, in the United States, that's not how it's perceived. Our media presents it the exact opposite. Our media sides with bullies. Our media defends bullies. It's outrageous. This, of course, is one of many instances of the United States killing civilians. There was a report about the Obama administration's drone strikes that said over 90% of those killed by Obama's drones were civilians. The man who received a fucking Nobel Peace Prize, one of the many recipients that turned that prize into an absolute laughingstock, in my opinion. But the point is, this is nothing really new for the United States. It's just business as usual. Except for their having to admit it. They usually just try to sweep it under the rug, and they will, going forward, try to sweep this one under the rug. And the hypocrisy there is just outrageous, you guys, because they want to claim, like, look, we're fighting all these jihadist groups, and look at all the horrendous attacks that they do around the world. It's like, okay, well, you don't really get any ground to stand on to complain about ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban if you're sitting there and executing these kinds of drone strikes, if you're sitting there and supporting the ethnic cleansing campaign in the West Bank, if you're sitting there and supporting Saudi Arabia as they executed genocide against Yemen, you don't have ground to stand on. It's rank hypocrisy. And again, as I've said a number of times, our presence in the Middle East contributes significantly to the destabilization that allows for the power vacuum, that allows for these groups to take power in the first place. So all of this violence really does in many ways trace back to United States foreign policy. And the violence at Kabul airport, the drone strike here, no different. This is all part of this whole couple of decade long, or really, I mean, even longer than that, but in its most recent form, the last couple decades of U.S. foreign policy. So I wanted to make sure to cover that. We murdered a bunch of children. Shame on Joe Biden. He's a war criminal. Shame on all of those officials at the Pentagon who decided to go forward with this strike. You're war criminals. You have blood on your hands. You killed fucking children. You belong at the Hague. Okay? That's all there is to that.